We're going on a structured journey into some really fascinating relationship dynamics. If you follow relationship psychology at all, you already know about that sudden, totally baffling distance that happens when an avoidant partner pulls away. Well, today, we're unpacking some brilliant source material from @thetherapistmommy to map out exactly how these psychological gears turn, and more importantly, why that distance happens in the first place.
Okay, let's dive into this. What actually makes an avoidant partner withdraw, right? It's the classic mystery. 1 minute, everything is completely fine, and the next, boom, a giant emotional wall drops. To really get this, we have to look past the withdrawal itself and find those hidden catalysts that happen right before it. We're going to map out exactly what sparks this retreat.
Understanding avoidant triggers. To do this right, we need to completely reframe how we view these moments. I want you to think of these triggers not as deliberate, malicious actions meant to hurt you, but rather as deeply ingrained psychological reflexes. It's like, you know how your body automatically flinches if you accidentally touch a hot stove? Well, an avoidant partner's attachment system flinches when it encounters specific relational environments. It's just a protective mechanism, a survival strategy. By looking at it through this empathetic lens, we can finally start to decode this behavior without taking it as a personal attack.
Now, what's really interesting here is the clear pattern that emerges when we look at intimacy and emotion triggers. Whether our partner is pushing for closeness, wanting them to open up emotionally, or just making them feel vulnerable to criticism, the common thread is the demand for vulnerability. For an avoidant individual, a push for emotional closeness doesn't feel like a warm hug, it feels like an impending threat. It's actually a bit wild when you think about it, but our brains can literally mistake a partner gently asking, "Hey, how was your day?" for a literal lion attack if the emotional pressure feels too high. Pushing them to open up acts as a massive catalyst. It instantly fires up that protective psychological reflex we just talked about, because to them, vulnerability is directly equated with being exposed to painful criticism. Let's move along and see how this builds into an entirely different category: control and independence triggers. Think about scenarios where someone is required to be dependent on others, or maybe a partner is demanding a lot of attention. These triggers, which also include feeling like the relationship is taking up way too much time, facing unpredictability, or just generally losing independence, they all revolve around forced dependence. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, independence equals safety. So when a relationship demands too much time or creates a sense of losing control, it effectively signals that their hard-earned autonomy is slipping away. And when that happens, those emotional alarm bells start ringing at absolute maximum volume.
The urge to withdraw. This is where we see the severe relational consequences of those alarms going off. It's a profound, often overwhelming urge to just get out. We've seen the distinct triggers across intimacy and independence, right? Well, when one or several of those triggers get activated, the agitation phase begins. The avoidant partner's nervous system is essentially screaming at them to evacuate immediately. This isn't some slow, casual fading away. No, this is an active, urgent psychological retreat from what they perceive as a massive threat of loss control or forced vulnerability. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact pipeline of that retreat. It's a very linear cause and effect. Step 1, a trigger is activated, say a push for deeper intimacy. Step 2, that immediately leads to withdrawing. The walls come up, communication completely slows down, and distance is created. But step 3, if that trigger is severe enough or if the environment doesn't stabilize, it rapidly escalates to a full-on breakup. It's a direct escalation from simply feeling pressured all the way to completely severing the connection just to regain a sense of safety.
I want to pause here for a second and read this exact quote directly from our source material by @thetherapistmommy, because the gravity of this really cannot be overstated. Quote, "Any of these triggers could result in someone with an avoidant attachment style either withdrawing from a relationship or even breaking up with their partner." End quote. Just let that sink in for a second. Any of these triggers. Just one of those exact catalysts we outlined earlier holds enough psychological weight to completely end a relationship. Understanding this matters immensely. Recognizing this fragility is absolutely crucial if you're trying to navigate these waters without entirely capsizing the boat.
But hey, here is where we pivot to the path to healthy regulation. Because this explainer isn't just about diagnosing the problem, it's about the solution. There is a very real, incredibly hopeful path forward here. Having an avoidant attachment style is absolutely not a life sentence of doomed relationships. By using the insights we've pulled directly from the source material, we can build a highly empathetic roadmap toward healthy regulation. Yes, it takes work. Yes, it requires self-awareness. But the actual structure to fix it, it's incredibly straightforward once you know exactly what you're looking for.
So the crucial point is that this pathway really comes down to two actionable steps. Step 1 is the awareness phase, recognizing triggers and how they react. It's all about the avoidant individual noticing, okay, my partner asking for more of my time is triggering my fear of losing independence. Step 2 is regulation. Regulate responses in more healthy ways. Once that self-awareness is unlocked, they can consciously choose not to withdraw, not to break up, but instead to communicate their need for space constructively. It completely disrupts that destructive cause and effect pipeline we looked at earlier and replaces it with a deliberate, healthy pause.
We've unpacked the reflexes, we've mapped out the triggers, and we've explored the exact pathway to regulation. Which brings us to our final question for you. Now that you know the triggers, how will you navigate the dynamics of avoidant attachment? Whether you recognize these reflexes in yourself or maybe in your partner, you now have the insights to actually understand them instead of just blindly reacting. Try applying these concepts to your own communication and just see how it transforms your connections. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I'll see you next time.